You guys, so embarrassing. I just had to be told how to do a live. So there's that. I'm walking back to my office. Get a couple people joining. My gals and my pals, are you guys ready to fight today? I kind of am. It seems that this is a case where you can't find people not fighting. All right, I'm gonna get Brandy in here with me in a second. Okay, I accepted. You guys, nothing makes me feel older. Nope, it says she declined. We're gonna figure this out. In the meantime, oh, thank you for loving the lipstick. In the meantime, we can give you guys kind of the lowdown on what's going on. Most of your questions that you sent in early on were about Michael Proctor. So I'm excited to talk about that because I think that there is maybe a misunderstanding about what is going on with him. Oh no. Oh, Brandy was in and then she left. We're both figuring out how to live together for the very first time. So if you want to watch two elder millennials figure this out, I'll tell you who Brandy is. Everyone's saying Brandy who. So as I was deep in the Karen Reed stuff, I obviously was like on Reddit a lot. And like deep in the Reddit, I was watching Every Day of Trial. And a lot of other people who were watching Every Day of Trial kept mentioning this woman named Brandy. Who I think is here. Hi.
Hi.
I was just explaining to everyone who you are.
Yeah, I was watching as you're saying, like, yeah, two elder millennials trying to figure it out, and I'm like sitting here pressing buttons, like, am I on? Can you hear me? Hello.
I'm like sitting here waiting till noon, and I go to like do it, and then I literally Slack my team. I go, oh my god, I just realized I don't know how to go live. So I figured it out. We're here now.
We're here. We made it.
But I was just telling everyone, so I was like deep into Reddit when all this was going on. I was watching Every Day of Trial testimony. And everyone else who was like deep in and watching Every Day of Trial testimony kept talking about this podcast, The 13th Juror. And so that is how I found you. Everyone needs to check out your show. Do you want to give them like kind of a premise of what it is?
Yeah. So I started covering the Karen Reed trial last year, towards the end of summer. And I saw everybody fighting. I know you were just talking about everybody fighting. I saw people fighting on social media, and I was like, why are people so passionate about this? So I started kind of doing a deep dive. I wanted to find out if this whole conspiracy thing was possible, where the conspiracy theory was coming from, and if anything supported it. So my 13th Juror podcast, I decided to do, my whole season 2 is based on everything Karen Reed. So from the very beginning, from all of the court documents, all of the pretrial hearings, and then I've followed it as it's kind of building up to the trial and then throughout the trial. So
and I love the premise. I mean, you said, listen, I'm a normal person. The jury isn't filled with people who have law degrees, who are analysts. Like, it's filled with normal people. I'm the 13th juror. And I think you do a really good job of, again, I watched the 9-hour trial testimony or whatever, and then I will do your recaps. I'm like, oh my God, that was so easy to understand. I honestly wish the jurors had that.
Yeah.
Maybe we wouldn't be in this position, but maybe we would.
Yeah. It's been great. Like, it's a lot of work to put it all together, but I feel like so much of what makes it a comprehensive story is because like when I'm listening to Crime Junkie, you put things together to tell it as a story. When you're listening in court, they can't do that. They have to do things through a very specific set of questioning, and they're very limited. So what I try to do is take all of that and create the information that they're giving us that sometimes gets lost, and put it into a story.
It's so hard to understand it otherwise.
Yeah.
The art of storytelling, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So we're here because there's a mistrial. After, what was it, 9 weeks, 10 weeks? How many weeks?
A million
weeks?
A million weeks.
It feels like I told my husband, I was like, I can't, like, all that time in my life, I can't get back. Like, and I'm going to have to do it again because one of the questions is, are they really going to retry her?
Yeah.
And the Commonwealth is saying absolutely.
Yeah. He says he intends to, and I'm so curious though, because I don't know if you saw the news last night, but they've rehomed Proctor. Proctor has been rehomed. So they have him the official statement right now is that he's been transferred to another department and he's relieved of his duties. So I guess technically what they're doing is, from what I hear, is they're investigating him or continuing the investigation that's already going on, and then pending disciplinary action. So from what it sounds like, they've kind of transferred him to get him out of that, out of that area. And then I from what I hear, that's like kind of, he's basically out the door at this point.
Well, that's what everyone, the common misconception is people are using the word fired interchangeably, and he's not actually fired. So the police have like a very strong union, and so they can't just fire him. He has to go through this whole phase where there is, I literally like took notes because I was like, don't get this wrong, Ashley. They have to have like a hearing, which is not scheduled yet. And until then, he's on paid leave. So good for him. I have to work for my money. So he's just on leave until this. When they're all done, I saw this thing on CBS. There's options. So it's either he gets his job back, he gets suspended with pay, suspended without pay, or he could receive restricted duties, or he could be fired. But
either way, I think that he's out of the situation where, because even if, when I say out, he might not be out of, completely, like they may put him desk job or something, but I feel like the important thing for me is that he's out of the situation where he can ruin another investigation, where he can leave so many problems, and I know that a lot of people say like, oh, well, all he did was send, bad text. No, he did so much more than that. There's so many things that he did incorrectly, and then even just misrepresenting to the grand jury about his relationships. That's a big deal. It's a
huge deal. But everyone had relationships in this case. Aunt Bev, the judge. Do you want to explain the judge, because I feel like that's like a little known one?
So Auntie Bev, so it came out in one of the pretrial hearings that they had asked to have her recused. The defense wanted her to recuse herself from the case because they said that she had ties to it. There's speculation and there's arguments about how close the ties actually are. One of her family members actually represented Chris Albert years ago, and people are saying that, oh, well, it was so long ago, and so that doesn't really matter. And then there was a back and forth between, I know we've all heard of Turtle Boy because he's been very loud in this case. I always refer to him as the loudest in the room. There was an exchange between him and Matt McCabe's brother, and he said something to Matt McCabe's brother about having a personal relationship with the judge. And he said, oh, you mean Auntie Bev? Yeah, who do you think, we're going to bury you under her seaside cottage? And so that's where the whole Auntie Bev thing came from. And they brought that up in one of the pretrial hearings and said, okay, they're referring to her, the Alberts and McCabe's are referring to her as Auntie Bev and saying that they have this connection. Why is this not enough for you to recuse yourself? And, on top of the connection of, her family member representing one of the Alberts before. And she said, no, that she's not.
Which is so strange because it's not like just a one-off connection. I feel like the whole conspiracy theory around this case is based on connections.
Yeah.
And so it kind of plays right into it. Do you think we're ever going to know how the jury was split? It was someone's question, and I know right now we don't know.
Right now we don't know. There are some rumors floating around social media, and the rumors, I'm telling you, we were able to go back to where they came from, and it's not true. It's the 10 to 2 split thing is based on somebody who was talking about a trial that's not even this trial. So I've seen that one floating around, but just FYI, that one's not real. I don't know that we're ever going to know the split. I would love to, but with this case having so much craziness surrounding it, I don't know if anybody's going to feel, or at least in the near future, if they're going to feel comfortable enough talking about, the split or how much it was. I was thinking, because to me, there's so much reasonable doubt, and there's so many questions, and there's so many problems, and just the investigation and the connections and the timeline and the changing statements and all of these things pile up into so much reasonable doubt that it's, even if you take away the Google search and the other things that we're questioning as far as where Higgins' Jeep may or may not have been parked and all of these crazy things that we've never been able to get answers to, even if you take that out, there's so much reasonable doubt. So to me, I feel like the jury would be predominantly not guilty based on how, you know, a lot of times when I'm doing polls and stuff on Twitter or in my YouTube chats, you know, a lot of those are pretty indicative of what the jury is thinking or feeling. And most
what do you
everybody,
think there, so for the people who would have said guilty, someone had to have thought that. What do you think that they were looking at? Because I mean, the hardest part for me is, I mean, honestly, put all of it aside, they couldn't prove that her car hit him, and that in the way that they couldn't prove that. And so like, I mean, conspiracy, all that aside, I was just like, I don't understand. Like, so what do you think that the jurors who were standing in their convictions and thought guilty, what do you think they were looking at?
I've tried really hard to understand that. And I've tried to look at some of the people who on social media and, you know, different things that have thought that she's guilty. And because that was my thing too. If the car didn't hit him, and you have the crash daddies, we call them the crash daddies, the two scientists at the very end that were, you know, or the, you know, doctors, the PhD bioengineer, like biomechanical engineers and reconstructionists telling us this is not consistent. So to me, that was the end of it. Her car didn't hit him. But I tried really hard to understand that. And I think that most people are just having trouble with the fact that she had, they say she had been drinking, and that she said something about either did I hit him, or, you know, or I hit him, whatever, in the morning when she was, they called her hysterical, and then that there was taillight pieces there. I think that a lot of people are having problems with the idea that taillight pieces could have been planted, or that the police could have had something to do with, you know, setting this up. And I think that there's a big misconception about this being this huge conspiracy where hundreds and hundreds of people are in on it. I don't think that at all. I think that a lot of the messiness that happened with some of the police officers, I don't think that they were like, oh, somebody else murdered him and we're going to frame her. I don't think it was that at all. I think a lot of it was like, let's beef up this case and secure a conviction because they believed that she was guilty.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's kind of been my theory. And it wasn't necessarily my theory coming into this. And one of the questions that somebody asked was, you know, how have your opinions changed? And so I'd love to hear yours over time. But for me, that was kind of one of them. It was like, oh, it's not, at least I believe, I don't think it's everybody trying to frame her. I think the more that I heard Michael Proctor talk on the stand, I was like, oh, I think you just showed up, couldn't be bothered to like look into things. You know, you had a buddy tell you something, or someone believed something, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be really hard. I'm just gonna make it a smidge easier on myself.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that if there is something else that happened to him, I don't think that anything was, no matter what happened or who is responsible, I don't think that this was like a planned murder. It's just not what I see. It's not what I feel like from the evidence. I don't think that anybody would have a, you know, a reason. And I know that some people out there disagree with me, and that's fine. We all tend to disagree about this case. I don't think that this is like a planned murder. I think that whatever happened was accidental, or something that, you know, maybe something happened and somebody panicked, or maybe something happened and somebody didn't even know. I've even thought about, you know, with they talked about when Higgins was leaving and the plow on his Jeep hit, you know, scraped something, and they weren't sure about what was happening. And I thought, okay, well, could that be something? And you know, if something happened and everybody is kind of, you know, either panicking or scrambling to, you know, figure out what happened or cover up or beef up the case because they really believe it's her, I don't know. But my thoughts have changed multiple times as I've gone through everything and as more stuff has come out. But I have never been able to get to the point where I truly believe that it had to have been her that did this. And I've never been able to get to the point where I believe that it's this huge conspiracy that everybody's in on. I'm kind of somewhere in between.
It's kind of wild to me, and maybe I just don't have these kind of loyalties in my own life, but it is kind of wild to me that if it was this accident or whatever, the amount of people that they've gotten to not change their story, to delete their phone records and say they don't remember things is. Early on, I used to joke when the trials were starting. I was like, oh, I can easily tell if you're a prosecution witness or if the prosecution is asking you questions or the defense, because mad detail you can remember when the prosecution is up there questioning their witnesses, and like if the defense is asking you questions, you can't recall anything. It was amazing.
It's cross-exam amnesia. Yeah, it's
Cross-exam amnesia is how you call
yeah,
it.
yeah, that's what we call it. It's when you get up there and all of a sudden on cross-examination you can't remember anything. You have amnesia. That's cross-exam amnesia. Yeah,
I love
um, and it's funny because it's some of the most random details, and like they remembered that that Matt McCabe ate some cheese before bed because he was on a diet, and he was whatever, and but she doesn't remember, like some of the things that were remembered were so insignificant, and then but things that they
huge
all
thing.
repeated, and like that it was like
Jen
it almost
McCabe
seemed
couldn't remember what she Googled. It's like
we
on
all
t-shirts at this point.
remember what she Googled. It's on t-shirts, it's on merch. There's merch with what she Googled. We all know what she Googled. So for her to say she didn't, it was one of those things where I think she was, trying to be difficult in that moment. And look, I get it. If she's being accused of, doing things that she had nothing to do with, I would be, cranky too. And I
I
would
would
be,
too.
so I get that part. But at the same time, it's not helping the case any when you're not being forthcoming about the answers that we know that
You should just be honest, right? Like
Yeah.
no one should be afraid of the truth. And
Yeah.
that's what ends up looking, I think, worse.
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned in the comments, I'm trying to like read them as we go, but they had mentioned that there is an internal investigation into Michael Proctor,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of people know.
Yeah.
What was interesting is that they said when they relieved him of his duties, first of all, they said they did it like because of the outcome. And I was like, would you not have? Or
Yeah.
but
That's infuriating.
but they did state that this is separate from the internal investigation. So like his relieving of duties is not like because of like they seem like two separate things. The relieving of duties was because of his trial testimony.
Yeah.
And which is like also bonkers because, by the way, in case you didn't watch the whole trial, he was texting everything he was texting to his bosses.
Mm-hmm.
So like to act like we're all outraged right now, it's like,
Yeah.
that's a broken system over there.
Yeah.
But it is completely separate from his internal investigation,
Yeah.
which I think is important to know. And speaking of other investigations, when are we going to find out anything about this federal investigation?
I'm so ready for more TUI documents. I am like so ready to find out more. I know that there have been, parts of things that have been unsealed that we've been able to have access to, but very little. And I want to know I want all 3,000, however many pages. I want it all, and I want to dig through it. I am so curious. I've been really, careful about how I've talked about some of the Fed stuff, because we hear very different perspectives from it in the pretrial hearings. When, we heard Alan Jackson stand up there and say, the federal documents say that that car did not hit John O'Keefe, and John O'Keefe did not hit that car. And then we heard Lally get up there and say in the pretrial hearing, oh, well, they're only talking about the back of his head. So I thought, okay, well, maybe this is just defense, and I'll kind of keep too much of that conviction about like, oh, well, if they said this, it can't be true. I'll see what comes out. But Lally lied. It was not just about the back of the head. It was about all of it. And so when I heard that, I was like, now I need to see everything. So I am very curious to see how it all comes out. And I know that, if they do go forward with the second trial, they say they intend to. So if they do go forward to the second trial, that'll be really interesting, because how do you do that with the lead investigator with all of that mess?
How did they do? Like, it's not that much of a mess than it already was.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think everyone who like heard him talk was like, yeah, you should be relieved of duty. Like, that's what's so bonkers to me, is because I feel like it would be the same case, and clearly it was enough now for people to still not question how he, as a lead investigator, could have tainted the investigation.
Yeah. And and especially with him now being rehomed, because it's like, okay, if Norfolk County can't trust him, then how can a jury? So if we can't rely on him, this goes so far beyond just, disgusting text messages. This is showing that he is not capable of working in this office in this capacity, because we can't trust what he's doing. So if they can't, and they have to send him to wherever they've sent him, to a desk job or Vermont or wherever they rehome state troopers to, I don't know how a jury will ever be able to look at this and say, oh, well, we can rely on what he says. I feel like everything that came from him is out the window. And the fact that he lied to a grand jury about his connections to the Alberts is a huge deal too, because it shows that it makes you wonder, is some of what he said and the way that his investigation went skewed because of these relationships that he then lied to people about? So, you know, it's a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna ask. I've been like had my team like write down some questions. Do you think they'll be able to find a new impartial jury?
No, I don't know
Do you
how.
think? Well, and now it's gotten so big. I mean, I think the thing was like they need to leave Massachusetts, basically.
Yeah.
But it's gotten so big now. I think it's going to be hard anywhere. Don't you think?
Yeah, it'll be really hard, especially because when I first started covering this last year, there was some talk about it, and there was some, you know, a little bit of coverage, but it wasn't that big. The closer we got to the trial, the bigger and bigger and bigger it got, and everything has kind of blown up. And I have a lot of locals in the area, in Canton and Boston areas, that I, you know, talk to on a regular basis, that I've gotten a lot of their, you know, opinions and their input and different things with this case. And all of them, you know, they'll send me pictures all the time, like, you know, there's free Karen Reed signs in people's yards, and
It looks like
they'll,
chaos over there.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And they have, you know,
I had done a pretty good job of avoiding like a deep dive into the Turtle Boy stuff, like some of the documents or whatever. But
yeah,
like now that the trial's over, I like peeked into the YouTube world,
yeah,
and like the videos of people like fighting like in the
yes,
street is like they're like, I mean, they're all out there just like living their lives and screaming at each other.
yes,
And you know, and again, the witnesses that came up saying we're being harassed. I mean, it's no joke. Like
yeah,
I don't know how they're going to be able to stay there and just like live their life, especially if this goes another round.
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because it's already so big, and there's so much animosity. And I think that everybody was kind of looking forward to the end of this, because it's almost like, it's not like if you were fighting hardcore for this side and, you know, you got the verdict you wanted, that all of a sudden that was going to be the end of it. I mean, it's there's always going to be some aftermath,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that it was almost like the everybody's kind of looking forward to it as like the first step that maybe like the community can stop fighting so much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that there's a retrial, or a potential retrial, there's you know, in the future, now it's kind of like, oh, now we have to you know, kind of buckle up and go through all this more. And I don't know, as big as it's gotten, I don't know how they with even if they move locations, it would have to be moved to, I don't even know where you could move to where, you know, it would still be doable for them to do this without there being so much attention on it.
Do you
So
think Alan Jackson and Yannetti would stay for lawyers?
I think so. I think so. I know that Jackson put out a statement yesterday. Somebody asked him about Proctor and the announcement that came from him yesterday, and he said something about, we look forward to, I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was something about how, like, we look forward to, you know, showing more of this in the future, or something like that. And I was like, oh, future, so you are going to be, you know, I can't imagine a retrial without those two.
They
I
know
feel
so
like they were
much.
they know so much, and they've been through so much with this. And I feel like there are some things that they went through in the defense that I feel like were kind of a reach, and I feel like it came across as a reach. You know, and with a case like this, you don't need to
Mm-hmm.
reach. There's so much already available to you. You don't need to reach. And I think that there may be some things that they are able to kind of, you know, alter on the retrial when they do this. But I think it was the perfect combination too, because you have Yannetti, who is, you know, a local. So I think they did a great job with having Yannetti do the openings, because it's like, hey, I'm one of y'all, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here with you. Like, I'm a, you know, I'm a local too. This is, you know. And then they had Jackson, you know, do the closings, and he's such a strong attorney, and he's very, very well spoken. He's very powerful. The way that he speaks is, it's very engaging.
Mm-hmm.
When he wants you to really focus on something, you're going to notice what he wants you
Yeah.
to focus on, and he does a great job. I feel like they were and Miss Little, people underestimate her. Like Eliza Little, she did a great job too, you know, on her cross examinations, and she was very just meticulous and kind of to the point. I can't imagine another defense team handling this case.
I don't think they could get caught up. Can she afford this defense team again, though?
I don't know. I mean, I know that there's so much support for her, that they have a lot of fundraising efforts and
Okay.
stuff like that for her. So I think that I know that so many people truly believe in her innocence that they want to support any way they can. So I know that they have constant fundraisers and different things going to try to, help with the defense fund.
Gotta be scary. I was thinking about like, for her, she's like, I got to do all this again. And to know that there were some people on there who were ready to like send you to jail for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You can see it like
Yeah.
taking years off.
Yeah. And I feel like if I were on the jury, it would be hard for me. And I've said this before, it would be hard for me to send somebody away for the rest of their life or to prison in general on shaky evidence. Because to me, the second that the medical examiner said that those injuries are not consistent with what they know car wrecks to be, and then the crash daddies came out and said the injuries don't line up to the car and the car doesn't line up to the injuries. And for me, there's nothing else that mattered at that point that could have been important enough for me to say, okay, I trust my decision to send somebody away for the rest of her life. To me, that was it.
And especially when Alan Jackson, he did a good job of pointing this out when the crash daddies were talking, is that they were not hired by them.
Right.
Like it's a big bone I have to pick with like the way that trials have turned into. It really is like who can afford the best expert.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pay to get the story you want a lot of times, which is very scary.
Yeah.
But to bring someone in and say, neither one of us hired you.
Yeah.
What did you find? And what you found was like, this is not consistent with the story that you're putting forward. Truly, that was like my biggest turnaround in the case. So no, it's not this big conspiracy. It's a couple of some kind of accident, a couple of bad actors, and then people doing their job really poorly. Yeah. But I actually came in being like, I don't know. Like there's some stuff that doesn't make sense. I think there's some shady boots things happening, but I don't know. It is possible. You know she's angry. All these things. But then to actually hear the evidence, see the evidence, even the stuff about her, like when she like connects to the Wi-Fi at 12:36, and like the fact that she's like sending him these screaming messages, to me, I'm like, you're mad at him because you're like, you didn't see him. Like, so I really walked away being like, oh my gosh, I don't think they just got it wrong or can't prove their case. I actually really don't know that I think she did it.
Yeah, same. And I thought about too, that it's funny because the crash daddies brought up the glass being thrown at the taillight, and they were thinking that could be a way that the taillight actually busted because it didn't make sense for an arm to do that. Yeah. And when they said that, I was like, I said that on episode 8. I said that on episode 8. So I had said that before. I thought, well, maybe if they threw it, because I know that the taillight lens can get a little bit more brittle in cold weather. So I thought if they're fighting, because we know that she left him a voicemail. So if they're fighting and he's like, what, screw you, and throws the glass and hits the back of the car, that would make a loud noise. So I'm thinking if she heard that and then all of a sudden he wasn't home the next morning, then that's when she's like, oh my God, was that loud noise? Like, did I hit him? Is that what that loud noise was? And started panicking because of that. So I can see different scenarios working about, to explain some of the behavior the next morning, but especially with her saying, I'm leaving, I'm back in Mansfield now, and
your kids are
I'm not here.
Niece and nephew are alone.
So it makes sense why she was like panicked, because she knows that he wouldn't leave them alone overnight. So it made more sense to me why she was panicked, the next morning when he wasn't there, because she had done everything she could to try to get him there.
Let me see what else people want to know. What do you think the prosecution's new strategy would be in the next trial? Do you think they would have Lally do it?
Yes.
Oh my God, how much did you hate that, like, if I had to hear Auntie Bev say one more time, like, for him to speak up for 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden, when he does his cross-examination, he, like, is a completely different person?
Yeah. Oh, he got his sassy pants on during his cross-examinations, and when he got mad at the witnesses, when he didn't like what they were saying, he got all of a sudden we could hear him.
Is that a strategy? You think that was a strategy, just to like bore the pants off the jury, or what?
I have no idea. I kept thinking like, nobody can be that.
So said, what if anything? What if anything was Lally's strategy?
Wait, there was like 2,000. We had somebody in our chat when I was streaming it. We had somebody that was counting the what if anythings, and it was right at 2,000 for the full trial. That 2,000 times that he said that.
If anything.
What if anything? Yeah. And it's crazy too, because he kept getting his own details wrong. So even with the I hit him thing, which he really relied on, to me, that was such a non-issue because he kept saying it was a confession. If it was a confession, they would have locked her up, but they didn't.
It was
you
also,
know, like in the,
correct me if I'm wrong, not in anyone's report.
no, not until later. It was all of the original statements and everything, all of the police officers that were there, everybody who did all of their reports. It wasn't in any of that. When it was added in later and it was testified to later, and it was, everything kind of happened later. And the very first one who said it, that it was, I hit him, was Katie McLaughlin, the firefighter. And she's the one who they had the big controversy over, her being, you know, friends with Caitlin Albert, and you know, all the pictures of them on vacation, you know, in hot tubs and drinking and stuff, whatever. So she's the first one. But it's interesting because she had in her statement, she said that she heard it and it was said in front of a police officer, and she went to the ambulance and told Flamati and Nuttall that that she had said that. So then all of a sudden later it came out that Flamati and Nuttall were saying that they heard it. But the original statement was she said that she heard it and went and told them. And I think, I don't think that they're lying, to be clear. I don't think that they're lying. I think that it's a false memory. I think that that was, it happened in the moment. This is something that they've even said that they talked about at the firehouse, you know, all the time. And it was a big topic of conversation. It's very common, especially in high stress situations. You don't remember everything that happens. And as you talk about things, you take on those memories as your own. So I don't think that these firefighters are, I think that it's kind of like the same thing that one of the same ones who said that he heard that also remembered cutting off a puffy jacket that didn't exist. So I think that it's just, you know, faulty memory is a thing. And I think that that's what that was.
I can't believe we're gonna have to do this again.
I can't either. I can't either. I'm already tired thinking about it.
Someone is asking right now, oh gosh, what about all the missing video and the altered footage?
The missing video is one of the things that has been one of the things that drives me nuts the most. So I talked to or I've been in contact with a video editor who does this kind of stuff, and I'm going to have her on the podcast, and she's gone like full on into this, and she's I was looking at her social media today, and she's like trying to get this exact same camera from the Sallyport and, you know, do some testing and stuff. There was a video that came out, a video, like a screen video thing of who they said it was Karen Reed and Alan Jackson like hugging up on each other. And
that looked like a straight up deep fake though. I didn't even give it. Okay, yeah, I didn't give it the time of day.
Yeah, she was able to like show like in the metadata like how it was altered or whatever, and, you know, show these different things.
I'm scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Like 99.9% of people don't know to look for the metadata or don't even know enough. Like literally, my sweet husband, I love him. He's the one that sent it to me, and he was like, "You'll never believe this," and I was like, "Eric, you're smarter than that." This is. I was like, on my life, this isn't real.
Yeah. I guess it had, at the end of it, it had like a thing that said CapCut. I don't know what CapCut is, but I guess it's some kind of editing thing or something. So I mean, look, I sat here and struggled to get onto Instagram Live with you today. So I'm not going to know what all these things are, but I just bring on the people who do. And but the Sallyport thing was a big deal. Here's why the Sallyport thing is a big deal and why everybody should be really freaked out about this. The Sallyport being inverted was a problem because, well, it's a problem anyway, but the fact that they did not say to them, this is inverted, this is mirrored, make sure that they know what they're looking at, that was a huge problem. But Proctor on the stand said that he watched that video at his desk from the flash drive, and he said that it was not inverted when he watched it, and he said that the timestamp on it was yellow, it was not blue. What we saw was inverted with a blue timestamp. So what did he watch, and why did they show the jury something different? Because if he's watching this directly from the flash drive as it was collected, why did the jury see something different? That's a huge deal. That's a huge problem.
Who altered it?
Yeah.
It's so shady.
Yeah.
This whole thing is so shady.
Yeah. Everything. And every time you think like, this couldn't really be true, then something else comes out and it's like, wait, what? Like, really? This is really happening? The very first time I heard about this, I'm like, okay, like there's a government conspiracy and all the cops. And then you're like, oh wait, there's a federal investigation. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think that started with? The federal investigation? I've heard different things. You know, it depends on which side you're hearing from. Like I've heard some of the people who are very like, Karen is guilty are saying like, oh, well, the feds are involved in this too. They're just friends with, Karen's family. And so they went and, started this just to make it look okay on her. And then you hear some people that are saying that, everybody's got different stories. Personally, I think that there are some other things that are happening in this area too. It's not just this. This is not the only investigation. And you and I have talked about this. This is not the only investigation in this area involving some of these same people that has been really shady. And I think that this one is, there's so many parts of this that are shady that it was, brought to the attention of the feds and they started looking into it. There's not one specific target that they have listed, which is they're not going, the feds aren't going to tell you that. If there's an investigation, they're not going to say, oh yeah, it's this one dude that we're looking for, so we'll know more about I know that the big thing is like they're investigating the investigation, and we'll know more about what comes if we can ever get our hands on the TUI information on the Fed papers. But I think that honestly they opened up the federal investigation into the Sarah Birchmore as well. I think that there's so much corruption and so much shadiness in this area that and now there's so much attention on it that now it's kind of, it can't be ignored anymore. And so I'm looking forward to being able to see what they can change around there and what this brings to light.
You want to give like a 2-minute spiel on Sandra Birchmore?
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of people know.
Yeah, she's this one is one that is 2000 and hold on, let me pull up my notes so I don't want to tell it wrong, because this one's it's really sad. It's a lot of the same people, and she was basically 15 years old when she got involved with these 3 police officers who were doing a kids
it's called Explorer program, which
yeah.
by the way, because of this case, I'm like deep into like diving into these Explorer programs because there is like rampant sexual abuse, like you wouldn't believe. But it is basically like it's almost like a Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, but like for kids who want to be police one day, they get to go be like junior police officers.
Yeah. And it was 2021. I had to double check because I didn't want to say wrong. I've got 22 burned in my brain because of this case. But it was, but she was found dead in her apartment. And the thing is, she got involved with these 3 police officers during this program, and she was only 15 when that started. She ended up having a sexual relationship as she's an adult, but it started before then. It started like there was grooming before that, and there was statutory rape, allegations and things before that. Like this all started before she was an adult. But it's basically the allegations are these 3 officers that were involved in this exploratory program kind of groomed her. One of them, who was married and I believe had a child on the way, she was having a sexual relationship with him and was pregnant with a baby that we believe is his. He is the last one that was in her apartment, and there's video footage of him coming through the lobby going into her apartment. That's the last time she was seen alive, and he's got like a mask on, like the COVID type mask, and he's got his hood up and kind of has his head down, but you can see him going into the building and then going up on the elevator. He comes down 30 minutes later, and she's never seen alive again. They originally said that she hung herself on her, I think her closet door handle, but they've recently had another pathologist look at it, Dr. Bader, and he has ruled this a homicide. He said that this is not, this was not self-inflicted, that this is a homicide, and gave his reasoning why. So they're hopefully,
and there's a lot of you see a lot of the same names, like a lot of the same bad actors. So I know Lank, who's the first person to show up that night that John O'Keefe, or the morning that John O'Keefe is found, he shows up in this case. And so I think now it's like, okay, this just went away. And I'm interested to see what unfolds after this, because I think there's probably a lot more. This doesn't just start, right, in 2021, 2022. Like this piece was like, this was deep.
Yeah. And there's another one too, and his sister has contacted me, Justin Root. Justin Root was another one who had this is all under District Attorney Morrissey as well, but he was shot more than 30 times by law enforcement, point blank range. You can hear them apparently congratulating each other on the body cam. He was unarmed. They said that he did have like some kind of paint gun or paintball gun type thing, but he was unarmed. He posed no threat, but he had had some kind of mental. I think that if I remember right, he was at the hospital at that time for an appointment, but he had some kind of mental challenges that he was facing. And when they shot him, they were congratulating each other. There was a 30-day investigation into it, and they were all cleared. All of the officers were cleared. And so there's a wrongful death civil suit that the family has filed against them. But a lot of that is the same player. So this is kind of one of those things where this is not just the Karen Reed case is not just a one-off. This is the one that has gotten a lot of attention, but there's a lot of other things going on in this area as well.
And I mean, for every defense attorney, if Michael Proctor touched a case where my defendant was guilty, like, you better believe I'm going to be like peeling that open.
Yeah.
Like it's going to get wild.
Yeah.
One of the questions I saw is around the lack of blood found near John. What do you have thoughts on that? Because I mean, I know we collected some stuff in solo cups, but like, was that all the blood we expected to see?
I've got some questions about that too. I know that when you look at the clothes, a lot of the clothing, it looks like, and even I know that there's a drop of blood on the shoe, and some of the clothing, it looks like blood dripped down, and that does not happen the way that they explained falling. Like that gravity makes blood drip down, not anything else. And then
he had vomit on his shirt too, right?
Yeah. So all of that to me makes no sense with how they have described this. Not a lot of things make sense about Trooper Paul's, description of what happened. But with the pirouette and all of that nonsense. But that's one of the things that doesn't make sense too. The way that when you look at the clothing that they had in the exhibits, the way that it dripped down, that is, to me, looks like it's from standing up. Especially with it dripping on the shoe, that's not really how that would work. And then around that area, having the very limited blood that was right there, when you would be expecting it to pool so much. And, they talk about how it was cold enough for it to freeze, but it, or for the ground to freeze around there and stuff, but if it was cold enough for that, then the blood wouldn't have soaked into the ground. So none of that makes sense to me either.
Is there anything that you think would not be in next time, or like, would Karen testify in her own defense next time? Like anything big, like any big changes, or are we going to see the same show on repeat?
I think that they will hopefully filter some things out. Like, we don't need to hear everybody who's ever been inside the Waterfall Bar and Grill ever in their whole entire life to come and talk about it was snowing and there was a band playing and they
was like high top
tables.
I got
We don't need all that. I think that if they are smarter with their prosecution, maybe they'll leave some of that out. I think that if the problem with having all of that is that it just bogs the jury down with unnecessary details. And I think that it really caused everybody to lose focus so early in the beginning. Plus, everybody in the beginning all of those stories and everything being told about Karen were all very positive. So all of these people that they're bringing in are talking about how Karen was, so great to, the kids, and how they had such a loving relationship, and they had, they fought, but it was typical couple fighting, and it was, nothing like what's being presented by the Commonwealth and stuff like that. So I think that if they possibly try to weed some of that unnecessary stuff out, and then I would like to see the defense, because there is so much reasonable doubt, I would like to see them focus more on the Bowden defense as opposed to third party culprit. because I think that some of which it's a it's a fine line there, you know, the difference, but you know, as instead of saying it was this person, this person, this person, you know, go get them, instead of saying that, say like these people are legitimately, you know, people that should be looked at. These are, and here's the reasons why. And because I think that by doing the third party culprit defense, even though it's not legally supposed to be like this, I think that there was an unintentional shifting of burden of proof in that situation. So I think instead of saying, look, like it could have been this and they didn't even look at this, like look at why this is a person that should have been looked at and they didn't even look at it. I think instead of that, which is of course reasonable doubt, that would be under burden defense. I think instead of doing that, they went the full, you know, third party culprit, like she was framed and it was this person, this person, this person. So I think that some of the jurors may have had a hard time because instead of being able to know that you look at these things and you say either they proved it or they didn't, I think that there may have been some unintentional burden of proof shifting on that. So I would maybe think that that would be something that could be helpful to alter a little bit.
I didn't get to watch the verdict actually be read. A lot of people are commenting about John's brother making a threat. What happened there?
Yeah, so when he was walking out, he said to Karen, "I'm not done with you yet," and you can see Aaron, his wife, you know, kind of like swat him and like, don't do that or don't say that, you know, and Karen heard it, of course. Everybody in the courtroom, like they were standing right there, heard it. Nick Rocco is the one who confirmed what they said. He was standing right there, but yeah, he said, "I'm not done with you yet," and then Karen heard it, of course, and turned around and you could see her face. She was not happy with that. I think emotions got the best of him, and you know, his frustration, and yeah.
They still seem really set on the prosecution's version of things, that she did this.
Yeah.
I'm always interested to understand, like I think it's got to be like unimaginable, and I don't know if you just get in this mindset that it has to be. I don't know.
Yeah,
Or I know something we don't know.
I think that it would have to be really difficult because you look at it like trying to look at it as much as I can from their perspective. You know, if like I think about, you know, Peggy O'Keefe sitting there and it's like, you know, her the stories that she's watching being told in court are either, you know, John's friends, which they weren't like friends, they were more acquaintances, you know, but these are, you know, John's, like some of them were friends, like Carrie was a friend, whatever, but you know, these are his friends, but also fellow police officers. So it's like you have to believe that either all of these people that were friends with your son and also fellow police officers are wrong, or this one person who you didn't really like anyway is wrong.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a really good perspective.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so tough.
Yeah. I hate it for them. And I hate that the camera shows them in court. I get so mad every time it shows them in court. I'm like, just leave them alone. Let them, you know, I hate that it zooms in on them.
The jurors, because there was a mistrial, their names aren't getting released though, right? So like they actually will stay kind of anonymous.
Yeah, they released that a thing yesterday saying that they are not going to release the juror list because of that. So
okay.
Which I think is with as much craziness as this case has, I think that's probably a good thing.
I got one more question. I saw, and I don't know if this is just like someone taking a screenshot and like whatever, but towards the end of trial, I saw everyone making a big deal because like Brian Albert actually came into court one day, and there was all this hubbubaloo about everyone who was there who had been witnesses before, like seeing someone walk in and like looking shocked, or like some people say he's like, but like, was that real? Did that happen? Who walked in?
I don't know who walked in, but I did see that. I saw him make like a face and like the OF. I saw that, but I don't know who it was that walked in. It didn't show who walked in, so, or if it did, I didn't see it, but I did see him kind of reacting to that. So I'm not sure.
Turtle Boy sold his life rights, so he's making a movie.
Yeah, I saw that he's making a movie and writing a book, he said, and there's I've seen one of the other, like if you can imagine like the exact opposite of Turtle Boy, that would be Grant Smith Ellis, and he's kind of been on the opposite side of like, which he ended up not being able to go to the courthouse because there was all this drama in the line. That's in what I put all that mess in one of the episodes too. But there was all this drama in the press line, and now he's no longer allowed at the courthouse and stuff. But he said he's writing a book too, which I am. Honestly, I feel like I'm just gonna have to read both of them because it's gonna be like two totally different trials that they're talking about.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for helping me like break it down and like chatting about some of my questions. We'll do this again.
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see how everything goes. I still have people that are telling me that even though they say that they intend to try it again, that they don't think that they'll go through with it. So we'll see. But
oh man. All right.
Well,
if you guys do want to play catch up, you guys should check out the 13th Juror podcast, because I'm sure you're going to be following this until there's an end, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandy.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
guys,
you.
for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.